And today we got a pretty serious sports show for you guys there today that we definitely want you guys to stick around for. I think this is going to be one of the most important sports topics that we're going to cover on this channel. So make sure you stick around for this one. We got a lot that we want to talk about here today. A lot. Let's get into it. This current NBA that we find ourselves in is a very strange one. Very strange one. Why? Because there are a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? There are a lot of incongruities that lie within this particular in this particular league. What we constantly hear as sports fans is, this is the best the game has ever been. These are the most talented, most skilled, most athletic players the sport has ever seen. This is the narrative. Players in the past couldn't hold a candle to what we're seeing today. And a lot of us that try to inject some common sense into this conversation would always ask, you're saying this based on what exactly? What are we basing that notion on? In my personal view, I think there are people out there that want that to be true because they want this era to be the best, because their favorite players are in this era, so therefore this is the best ever. In my personal view, it's just the way they package it. To me, I've always shunned that notion. I never agreed with it, that this is the most talented, most spectacular players have never been, but I never believed it because there was no evidence to support it. People were looking at one or two or three particular things that players did very well now and using that as a catalyst to make their opinion, to form their opinions, forgetting the fact that there were players in the past that did other things much better than players today, and they just ignored those facts entirely. One of the biggest issues the NBA finds itself facing in this current modern era is this: the lack of player durability and player availability. That's the number one issue that the NBA is facing today, in my personal view. And just yesterday, former head coach Stan Van Gundy, who coached the Orlando Magic and some other teams, took to Twitter to voice his displeasure with the current state of affairs of the NBA. He said the following: 90s NBA teams had just a trainer, a strength coach. They practiced more often and harder and played more back-to-backs. Teams now have huge medical quote-unquote performance staffs and value rest over practice. Yet injuries and games missed are way up. Something's not working. Someone went, I believe it's John Hollinger, he posted in response to him, "My 3-word explanation, the game has changed." Stan responded to him, "Sorry, not buying it, John. Game is definitely faster, but less physical. What's really changed is the value system. If these performance and medical staffs are so necessary, guys shouldn't be missing these games." John then responded, "We don't have a control group to compare against. One can argue all these interventions have prevented a much worse loss of man games as on-court demands bodies change." And then Kevin Durant chimed in, spitting facts. This is a pretty funny part of this. And then Stan Van Gundy, then responded, because he didn't understand what Kevin Durant meant. He then responded by saying, "No, I'm not criticizing players. I'm saying that we're getting something wrong in how we prepare and train players. We can't do anything about injuries like yours. He fell on your leg. But all these groin, hamstring injuries, etc., shouldn't be happening as much as they are." So you heard what Stan Van Gundy had to say there. First of all, let's stand up and clap for Stan Van Gundy. Let's give him a round of applause. There's a lot to say here. You will be hard-pressed to find 5 superstars or 3 superstars that are under 30 that have played 82 games in the last 3 years. You'd be hard-pressed to find that. Hard-pressed. And the question is why? The question is why? Some people will say it's a precautionary measure. Fine. If it's a precautionary measure that you sit players down as much as you're doing it, then to Stan's point, why are injuries up? So obviously, the system that some of these people or medical staffs, whoever it is, are deploying is obviously not working. Number two, the larger issue in all of this is that the more that they implement these procedures and these policies is affecting one very important thing. And what's that? The product itself. Basketball is a spectator sport, meaning people watch it. And the way that the league has been marketed is it's been marketed around stars. And when you have star marquee names missing games regularly, like Kawhi Leonard and Paul George and others, you cheat the fans. You cheat the fans. Fans pay to come and see the best stars play the game. You cannot tell me that this is new information to you. We all know this. So if we continue to see on a reoccurring basis players playing less and less games, yet and still fans are still coming through those turnstiles, we have a problem. A serious problem. That's number one. Number two, to the people that are advocating that this current NBA is the greatest ever and players are so advanced and all of this, let me ask you guys a question. As an aside to Stan Van Gundy's points, how is it possible that these guys are not playing more games when the logistics is so much better today? How is that possible? How is it possible when you have more rest, you play less? How is that the case? How do you have a scenario in which you have a player like, for example, Paul George, who had missed a number of games, maybe 4 games in a row, 3 games in a row, came back to play 1 game and then missed the game last night? What's the thought process behind that? You want to protect them from what? Number one. Number two, maybe this is something that maybe somebody that works in the NBA will explain to me. Maybe someone that works in the NBA watches this show. Maybe you can explain it in the comment section. If I'm not mistaken, I think players get paid a fixed salary, correct? But I think, aren't they paid based on expected services rendered in the future? I believe so. So if a season has 82 games on the calendar, and I'm paying you $50 million a year, wouldn't my assumption be that I'm paying you $50 million to be available for those games? If that's the case, if I'm paying you $50 million to be available for less games, why am I paying you for games missed? Why? Now, some will say that it's not a player's fault that they get injured. That's 100% true. But in this case, that's not what Stan Van Gundy's talking about. He's not talking about injuries. He's talking about all of the other precautionary measures that are put in place to cause players or to influence them not to play games. I wonder, would we see players play more if they were only paid from a game-to-game on a game-to-game basis? Do you think if money was brought into the equation, it would change the propensity of these guys to play or not play? It's just a question. It's just a question I'm asking here. You have poster boys like Kawhi Leonard and all, but here's something worth mentioning. I'm not just going to put it all on Kawhi. Here's why. Because from my understanding, the Clippers medical staffs are the ones pushing for this, which means that it's an ism that exists within the league. It's an ism. It's a way of thinking now. It's the way of doing things now. It's a mode of operation right now that we find in the NBA where teams are now doing this uniform. It's uniform across the league now. And this is a problem. It's a problem. There has to be a metric in place that measures the sentiment of the fans. Because if you're telling me that the most important thing is that the players are healthy and they're available for games, then hold up a second. How are players going to be paid? How are TV deals going to be generated and negotiated upon if the fans don't watch? How is it working? What do you think these TV deals are being based off of? Do you think they got crickets watching these games? Or bats in the sky? These are real people that watch the games. So they should be the number one consideration. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe if I'm running a business, I'll think about my customers. Maybe I'm wrong in thinking like this. Maybe I have the wrong outlook. Maybe this is a little bit too radical. But what we're witnessing right now is flat out madness. And no one has yet to come up with a concrete enough explanation as to why they continuously throw this notion out there that these players are the best ever. If they're the best ever, why aren't they as durable as players in the past? I'm going to tell you this and I'm going to close right here. This is a fact and it can be proved. The more you give people, the less they do. Let me repeat it once more. The more you give human beings, the less they will achieve. Some people will say, but that sounds like an ox. How is that so? One would think that if you have more things at the ready, you'll be able to accomplish more. It's the total opposite. The more you give people, it causes them to use less of their own brain, their ingenuity, their creativity, and work less. It's the fact of the matter. People today are being pacified with so many different devices that what's happening is now thinking is becoming an afterthought. To even type a thing, you now have something that you can press. Let me just say it so I don't have to type it. That's where we are right now. It's the reason why the generation and the generation that came before us are way tougher than we are. If we put this group of people on planet Earth today, in the past where our parents and we wouldn't make it. We wouldn't make it. We are soft across the board. Across the board. You cannot compare the two. The person that is given less and asked to do that very same thing will always achieve more because they now have to stretch themselves. They now got to stretch themselves. It's gotten to the point where now people are so pacified and we're not really making any advances anymore. This is the problem. Because if it was true what you guys are saying, then why okay, so if the players evolve to be faster, stronger, quicker, all of these, why can't they be evolved to be more durable? Why would that be the thing that's missing? How is it possible that at 40 years old, Michael Jordan was able to play 82 games in a season, and today you can if you get a star to play 70 games, you did something to me. Why is that? The mentality has changed, which Stan Van Gundy's talking about, which is the value system. The Kobe Bryants, the Michael Jordans, those guys of the past don't exist anymore. They actually felt an obligation to go out there and perform. Do you know why? To quote the late and great Kobe, he said, because for all I know, that guy spent his only saved up money to come and see me play. I got to go out there and play. The value system has changed. That's what's happened. And it's sad to see. It's not fun to watch. This is just my opinion, and I have a right to have this opinion. As someone that patronizes this product, I pay to watch the games. I watch the game. I cover it. Me and a lot of NBA fans don't like this. And it has to be said. If we patronize it, if I go to a restaurant and you serve me something I don't like, I have a right to say I don't like it. Please, can you bring me something else? Or can I get my refund? I have that right as the paying customer. Stan Van Gundy is 100% on the money, and you saw even Kevin Durant agree with him. I don't understand. Maybe LeBron is a throwback. Why is LeBron playing more games than Kawhi Leonard? Answer me that. Okay, the medical staff told him. So he can't tell the medical staff I want to play? Kobe said they wouldn't try that madness with me to tell me I have to sit. They know not to try with me. I don't get it. These are my thoughts. I know I took a lot of time, but I felt like this is a conversation that needs to be had. These are my thoughts. Whatever you guys think, leave your thoughts in the comment section and we catch you all on the next show. Peace.